In this video, we're going to be going back and revisiting the Sideshow Collectibles DC Comics Joker 6-scale figure. If you wanted to track down the Clown Prince of Crime's first appearance, you'll want to actually go back to the very first issue of Batman back in April 25th, 1940. Now, the reason why we are going back and revisiting the Joker here is it's still one of my favorite all-time pieces in my 6-scale figure collection. There's something still about this Joker that I can look at every single day and find appreciation with. So I wanted to kind of give it a, not dust it off necessarily because he's been in a cabinet, but I definitely wanted to give him a new review. Well, where did we start? Let's start with his height. Joker stands, this particular one, doesn't actually stand close to 12 inches. He's almost even closer to 12.5 inches tall. He does come with a display stand, and I would say, number one, he does need a display stand. And I'll talk about that very, very shortly. But I do like the fact that the stand itself, first of all, is circular. And I also like the fact it's got the ha-ha-ha running across that. An alternate option that they could have gone with, too, is the classic Joker font with perhaps the Joker's face inside the O, which we've seen in a couple of comic, like the older Joker comics. But as it goes for a display stand, it's pretty simple, but simple is good in this instance. It does have the crotch clip to put in between his legs, and again, very needed. Let me show you why. Joker has everything that I would want Joker to have. He has got one of the coolest looking head sculpts, which we will talk about in a second, but he has two problems. One of which I won't talk about just yet until we get into the articulation of the figure, but the other one we'll talk about right now. One of the big issues I have with this particular Joker is surprisingly his feet. I may or may not be the only one that thinks this, but there's something about his feet that he is almost impossible to get to properly stand. I feel like his feet could be a little on the thin side. That could have actually favored a little bit more of a thicker shoe, in all honesty. But from the side, it looks like a normal shoe, complete with his spats over top of him there. But from the front, there's a certain bit of, it's hard to describe it, but from the front, they don't look right. And even though they sit completely flush, I think the big problem is because the shoes curl to the front. For some reason, standing him seems to be difficult. In fact, when you stand him, it doesn't even look like his feet are properly flat to a surface. That more often than not, I've been able to put him down onto a shelf, for example, and he has fallen over. And I think it's actually one of the issues I had with the figure the very first time I had a look at this guy on this channel. He really has a tough time standing, and chalk some of that up to maybe the looseness of the foot. I think chalk that somewhat as well to the very small footprint that he actually leaves on a shelf. He really only has the heels, and he has just this piece here, this part of the shoe, that really gives him his footing. But it also makes for, just again, a really odd-looking front. Like, I know what a shoe looks like, but for some strange reason, it doesn't look right when I look at him from the front. So in this instance, I would say definitely make use of this display stand here, bunkos. Because, again, if you have this Joker for yourself or planning to pick this guy up, you probably will already know, or about to know, the problems that he does have with standing. I do like the chaps, though. I think the chaps are a really nice touch. They've given almost like a little bit of a darker gray to the bottom of the chaps just to kind of give it some extra coloring. But there's something really about the shoes that bother me, and I don't know why they bother me so much, but they feel like they're just very, very flat and not nearly thick enough, actually. The rest of his costume is actually perfectly fine. He has more the classic Joker look to him, complete with green shirt, more kind of like an olive green, an orange vest, a purple string tie, and then he's got the, of course, the tailed tuxedo jacket, which is the only way I think you could go for Joker. Now, he does also have an alternate look with the interchangeable head and, of course, the jacket, the trench coat. We'll look at that in a second. But some nice detailing there on the outfit itself. They've sculpted in a flower. Don't want to get too close just in case. I find this looks a little sloppy, but I'm not nearly as much the craftsman when it comes to tying up nice little ribbons. I wouldn't entertain the idea of trying to clean that up myself. Looks like he's got some snaps going on there. I've never actually opened up the vest. I've usually just left it completely closed. Got some pinstripe pants, and of course the already aforementioned shoe problem. His shoes are nicely sculpted again, but just really read very flat to me. His gloves and hands, one of many. This guy actually comes with a lot of different hands. We'll look at those in a second. Are nicely sculpted there as well. Some nice button work, not only on the jacket itself, but some faux buttons on the front of the vest there. Without any doubt, though, the star attraction to this particular figure is the head sculpt. What a beautiful, if I could ever use that word to describe a Joker's face, what a beautiful looking head sculpt. At no point do I ever look at this figure on a daily basis and think to myself, he looks dated. Now, this is a relatively old figure. I reviewed this guy many, many years ago, but something about him, he still holds up well today. The sculpt goes certainly a long way, but I tell you though, if the paint was missed its mark ever so slightly, I think you wouldn't get quite as much appreciation, I think, for the face sculpt, but that paint is excellent. It's almost hard to describe it. It's like the base coat is like a flesh tone, which you see a little bit more in the ear area, and then he's got little peaks, little hidden areas, well, not so much hidden, but little areas of flesh that peek out through the coloring of his white face paint. Or not face paint, but his bleached skin. It looks really good, though, on the sides, like especially around the nose. It's somehow, I don't know how they managed to do it, but it reads not only as white, but it also reads as a slight flesh tone as well. It's a very happy medium between the two. The areas around his eyes not only are sculpted to give the eyes a look of sunken in, but they've also added what looks to be almost like a purpley gray into those little recessed areas. So areas such as the wrinkles around the eyes really show through. The sculpting of the eyebrows and the paint on the eyebrows. I love the very, very stark peaks of his eyebrows. They look awesome. His teeth are a good meld of almost white, borderline off-white. As you can see that they've painted around the actual individual teeth with almost like a darker gray. That shouldn't sound good on paper, but somehow gets very well executed here in the actual head sculpt. Not to mention, get a load of that hair. That is awesome. Of course, you've got the greens, but then you've got some other dark greens there also washed in. So all those little hairs get really showcased well here on the figure. It's the type of figure that if I ever was to do figure photography, which I would never probably entertain the notion of, figure photography, I would definitely spend a good afternoon taking pictures of this guy. He looks good from basically all angles. Perhaps maybe the side suffers the most because there's really not as much character. But like every other angle on Joker's face, you get that little bit of a tilt. Of course, you know, again, straightforward, it looks great. From the slight angle, it looks good. A little bit of a tilt, looks sinister. It is a fantastic head sculpt. And something also, too, to be said that even though, like, Sideshow Collectibles has done lots of different superheroes, I find they still struggle when it comes to a Batman. The Batman ends up looking a little old, he looks a little too wrinkly, but somehow they got Joker down right the very first time. He, again, looks spectacular. One of my personal favorites in my collection. Now, how would you ever entertain the idea of an interchangeable head sculpt when the primary head sculpt is as good as it is, but somehow Sideshow Collectibles gives you an equally good head sculpt here with the Joker, complete with his fedora here. Some Some nice additional shading there on the fedora, so not only do you have those purples, but you've got some of those darker areas of the purple as well. I honestly struggle when it comes to which way I would display this particular figure. One head sculpt is so good, but when you get the other head sculpt too, that is equally good, and not only is it equally good, but because you also have a very distinct difference in facial expression, it really begs the question, which Joker would you want to display, or which Joker head would you want to display here? I specifically like the fact that he's got the big laughing smile, as opposed to the closed, well, still teeth visible, but still closed smile. Again, lots of that additional shading that we were talking about gets showcased here in spades. You got the tongue there now, nicely painted. Again, the teeth done very well. You've got that little bit of that purpley gray almost around the areas of the eyes that are really, again, quite like. It's almost a shame, actually, that the head is sculpted with the hat, because I love this face sculpt so much that really the only thing that is the deal breaker for me is the fact that I can't remove the hat. If the hat was removable, I would almost even have a bigger struggle of wanting to switch out the heads. Like, which head would I prefer? This is a great looking head sculpt, but it lends itself only to if you want to have him displayed with the fedora. I think, personally speaking, having him wearing the hat, I would then basically entertain the full idea of getting him dressed with the trench coat as well. What then to be a better segue than to now talk about the trench coat that comes included with the Joker. He's got this weird strip of fabric on the interior. It's not something that bothers me terribly, but I just wonder why it was kind of seamed the way that it is. The jacket almost has a more darker tone of purple than the purple that's on his main tuxedo jacket. Again, you've got some additional buttons going on here, some pockets, and again, like little snaps and stuff like that. I guess you would call those like little belts or looplets on the actual sleeves. The jacket, again, looks really good, and you know, honestly speaking, I really like this look of Joker more so, and that's the only reason why I don't entertain the jacket, but the jacket looks just as good. Now, before I go ahead and change the head out, I just want to show you what Joker looks like with the trench coat on. You can probably see what I'm talking about here, how the tuxedo on the interior is a lighter purple than the exterior of the jacket. The jacket gives him a little extra oomph. I can't tell you whether or not I actually enjoy the trench coat if I don't have the hat head changed out. Because from a distance, at times I'm looking at it, it doesn't look too bad, but really for this, I think I more so like the tuxedo jacket myself. Now we can go ahead and change out the head. For that, we're just going to grab the torso, even though I'm tapping the head, grab the torso, and just want to wiggle that off the ball joint here. One thing I also should mention too is that the neck is its own ball joint. So more so when you're grabbing the torso, make sure you kind of hold on to the neck as well when you change out the head. There's Joker with his interchangeable head. Some would say a vast improvement. Some would say they almost like the original face sculpt a little bit more. And once again, let's bring in the original head so you guys can see the difference between the two. Again, like it's either face sculpt is perfectly fine and look great on the figure. It would almost want to, you'd almost want to entertain really the idea of picking up two of these, in all honesty. So you could have one Joker with his face like this, and the other Joker with his very laughing smile showing here. Joker comes with a bunch of different accessories, one of which being his Jester skull cane. Primarily black, but then it's got some nice little accent areas of gold on the band and at the bottom, as well as, of course, the gold skull. He also has a pistol, a silver pistol, which has a removable bang flag. This actually slides off fairly easy. So if you display it, I actually try to get it back on here. If you display the flag on the gun, one thing I probably would say is not have the gun angling down. A lot of times I'll just find that the flag will have just slid right off. And this detaches completely if you want to just have the pistol on its own. The pistol does open up, and inside, though not painted, they do give you some bullets inside, and the cartridge can be removed as well. Again, all of which you don't necessarily need on the pistol itself. I would have been fine just with a perfectly sculpted pistol as opposed to the one that has working components, but I do appreciate that because you can spin this. Joker also comes with a substantially large stick of dynamite. Several different sticks to be exact, and just taped together. But even like the sculpt on the tape looks like it's real tape. It's kind of wound and twisted itself to the tip here, and it's basically just waiting for a light. Cue then the other accessory, and very small accessory. Joker comes with also a little lighter. And the lighter does not open nor close, but it does also have the smallest of details, which hopefully you can see, a little Joker face on the lighter. He also has a series of different playing cards, which initially came in a baggie, a little bag. You've got the Joker, right there. And there's the back of it. And you got another Joker. Actually, that was a Jack. I should say that was a Jack of clubs. You've got your Joker. And another Joker. And finally, another Joker. I guess the first one he just ran out of Jokers, so decided to make his own. Also comes with a switchblade, which does open. I kind of feel like I gravitate a little bit more towards displaying him with stuff like this, like switchblades, his gun, his cane. I don't think I have ever actually displayed him with the stick of dynamite, but it's certainly an option if you want. Then Joker comes with a ton of different hands, like a ton. He has currently 2 in the sockets. I just currently have one for holding the lighter and one for holding the stick of dynamite. But he's also got like a trigger finger hand, so a couple of different of those. He's got a couple of closed fists. And he's got, again, like a little, again, a hand for holding, like, for example, the switchblade. This one actually sits a little looser for the switchblade, like the cane. He's got one for, again, I guess you could really have him holding anything on some of these hands. Now, the stick of dynamite I find holds better on this hand, but it's actually more just kind of by friction of holding it together. And then he's got this hand here. One of my personal favorites is he actually has a joy buzzer hand, which I would imagine is probably not just a shock one would expect to get from shaking hands with the Joker. Let's run through the posability of this guy. He, as you probably have seen over the course of this review, he's got a substantial amount of articulation in the head, via that he's got a ball joint that attaches from the neck basically to the head, but then he's got a secondary ball joint that attaches the base of the neck to the torso. He has an upper torso crunch as well as a waist swivel. His arms hinge outward, forward and back. He has the bend in the elbow. I find sometimes you have to be careful to know where the bend of the elbow sits. Now currently right now I've got the elbow facing the wrong way, so the elbow bends this way. He has a rotation in the hand as well as that hinge back and forth there as well. The legs are a different story altogether though. You've got a out split on the leg, a forward and back on the leg, as well as kind of like a cut, like a little swivel cut here that rotates. But there's something about the knees, and I do remember they were trying to work on something different for the knee portion of Joker. Bending the knee, I find, is difficult. It is theoretically possible, but I would not entertain, or nor have I entertained the idea of actually bending it, because it doesn't feel like it bends right. If we just roll up Joker's feet, I don't know if I can actually get it past the point of the kneecap. I probably can't, but it's basically like a cut here and a cut here, and then they've got almost this rounded off, I'll just keep looking at his socks, he's got this rounded off kind of kneecap here. I guess they were trying to put that in to simulate a real kneecap, but I would have almost favored just a hinge joint, because that knee I find is, I can barely do any bending with it, or whatever bending I do to it, I feel like I start doing it and then I quickly become apprehensive and I'm like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. There's resistance there. I definitely do not want that breaking. As for his feet, we've already discussed his feet. He's got the ball joint here, an ankle pivot. Again, he's got these very super thin shoes, but you do, in defense to them, you do get a fair bit of motion when you rotate them all around. You've got that ankle pivot and a rock back and forth. The Sideshow Collectibles Joker 6-scale figure still remains one of my personal favorites in my collection. There's something still to be said about the comic stylings of this particular Joker that make him stand out among maybe some of the movie character and movie Jokers that I have currently in my Detolf displays. I love the costume. Definitely can be said I love the face sculpts, whether it be the open mouth smiling with the hat or the regular smiling Joker head sculpt. I think both are equally done well. He has his fair sufficient amount of accessories, all of which Joker themed. About the only thing I could really say is a negative to this figure is his feet and his knees. The knees aren't so much the issue because I'm not really going to be bending the knees all that much, but there's something about the feet I wish they could have done differently. Maybe a flatter shoe, a flatter undersole of the shoe, could have made the figure standing a little bit easier. All around, those little small nitpicks are not enough to detract me from always thinking that this is my all-time favorite Joker 6-scale figure. And really one of the main reasons why I wanted to go back and revisit this particular figure. Today, once again, we were having a look at the Joker 6-scale figure from Sideshow Collectibles. If you guys like this video, hit it with a like down below. And if you haven't had a chance to subscribe yet to this channel, what are you waiting for? Hit that little subscribe button down below and you won't miss future videos coming onto this channel. As always, guys, thanks for watching as you always do. I'll see you next time.